Hello, beautiful souls, and welcome to this podcast. I'm Katie, your spiritual guide and mentor, here to support you on your healing and wellness journey, turning pain into power and wounds into wisdom. And today's podcast is all about deconditioning to reconnect with the divine feminine and moving from that hustle culture into harmony. And everything that we have been taught and deemed as successful is actually the root cause of all of our stress, burnout, and disconnection. So I'm here to hopefully shed a light on areas of your life where they may be misaligned, because they certainly were for me for a long time. So grab yourself your favorite cup of tea or sacred elixir, and let's dive right in. So my journey, many of you may know, for many decades, almost 2.5 decades, I was fully functioning in my masculine for a very, very long time. And the way I describe it now, looking back, and how I help other women come to terms with it, is it's like we are expected to run in the Olympics in the man's race and wanting us to win or expecting us to win. And we're literally setting ourselves up for failure, because women have a 28-day cycle. So 2 months, or sorry, 2 weeks in the month, we are compatible to the men's energy, because men have a 24-hour cycle. So women are connected to the moon, which has a 28-day cycle also, going from darkness into light. And the men are connected to the sun, which has the same cycle on a daily basis. So we can only match the man's energy 2 weeks out of the month. So the 9 to 5 way is really going against the woman's nature. And I have found this myself when I look back on all of the jobs that I have worked, and all of the places I've been, and trying to force myself to keep up, and just running on empty, running off coffee, really, and just trying to keep up, and wondering why it's not working, wondering why it feels so damn hard. And even when I started my own business, I brought that energy of the hustle culture into my holistic business. And it wasn't until COVID came that I was gifted the time to zoom out and to step back and be like, wow, there is another way for me to run my business, to live my life, because how you are in your business or your career is how you are in your personal life, and vice versa. So it really helped me to dive into my feminine essence and into the feminine way in order to create this new way of being. And I really, really hope this plants a seed in you and how you can do the same, because let's face it, we all can't just quit our 9 to 5 job and start living in the feminine way. Absolutely not. We have to be realistic. But we can begin to make subtle, small changes to weave and layer the feminine way more and more into our lives until it just becomes the feminine way eventually. And how I like to describe it is, if you sandwich or bookend your day with feminine ritual and practices. So for me, and for most of the women that I suggest this way to, is to start your morning with a feminine ritual and to end your day with a feminine ritual, because the majority of us can get up 15 minutes earlier and have more time in the evening for about 15 minutes. So that's half an hour of your day dedicated to the feminine. And when you start to introduce this into your day, everything begins to transform. You want more of it. You feel better, you look better, you're connecting with people more deeply. You're enjoying yourself, you're feeling more fulfilled, you're experiencing pleasure on a deeper level in all things. And that's because you're bringing the feminine in to soften those masculine edges. So essentially, the feminine is more about slowing down, tuning in, being more mindful, whereas the masculine is fast paced, doing forward movement, thinking about the future. So the feminine is more grounded in the now moment and experiencing life through the body. The masculine is more in the mind. Now we need both. We can't get rid of the masculine altogether. We need the masculine container to hold the feminine energy. So it does not matter if you're in a female body or a male body, you still need to balance the masculine and feminine within. So when you do this, life becomes more intuitive, more embodied, more sacred, rather than waking up, doing the same thing every day and just doing that on repeat. It's like Groundhog Day. And this is where it takes a little bit of time to decondition yourself from this is the only way. And I was so conditioned because I worked on cruise ships for years, and it was all about, filling your column from 8:30 in the morning until 10 o'clock at night. And if you had a half an hour or even a 10-minute gap, you know, it was seen as a failure because it was like you must fill every minute of every day in order to be successful. And when you see those gaps, it's like there's this fear of, oh, I haven't succeeded or I haven't done my job right, because you're you're conditioned to think that way, or to be have multiple clients at once. So you could have one in the tanning room, you could have one with a tint on their eyelashes, and you could have another one on a facial. So you're running 3 rooms at the same time. So I was conditioned to work that way and to maximize my productivity. Now, again, that's amazing. And it was the best work ethic and the hardest work that I've ever done. But how long is that sustainable? When I was in my 20s, obviously I had loads of energy, but that type of energy is finite. And this is where so many women get burnt out because we are great at multitasking. We can be spinning so many plates in the air, but if one plate crashes, it all crashes. And that comes back to being a mother, a career woman, a carer for your parents or your younger siblings. Like, we are just, I suppose, expected to do it all. Um, but it's not how it's supposed to be or how it should be. Now, if it's serving you, if you are loving life that way, by all means, keep going. But from the women that I've worked with and the studying and the research that I have done into the sacred feminine and into the feminine way, this is not how we are supposed to live. There has to be moments of pause. There has to be moments of rest. There has to be moments of just simply being, because we miss the sacredness. We miss the present moment if we're constantly doing, pushing forward. And you're probably asking, like, but how do you stop? How do you decondition yourself? Well, firstly, you have to become aware of what is. Okay, I'm running the rat race here. I'm running in the man's lane in the Olympics. I'm in the wrong lane. So just with that awareness alone can be like, well, if I'm in the wrong lane, there must be a right lane. So it's about navigating or moving towards the lane that is more in alignment with you. And that's going to look different for everybody. But it's taken me a couple of years to form this way of thinking and of living, because the two have to coincide together. So I still get moments of, oh, you should be doing something in this hour of free time. And then the other part of me, the new conditioning, is like, well, you've carved this time out to just be. Yes, there's washing to do. Yes, there's emails to answer. Yes, there's other things that you could be doing and you should be doing. But this moment of just being is actually way more important than all of that. Because when you have those 1 hour, half an hour, 10 minutes, 5 minutes of just being, you are actually realigning your energy, dropping into your body, dropping into the present moment, stopping time, and creating this sense of rest. Because when we're in the doing, we're in the sympathetic nervous system, which is the stress response. And again, we need to be in that sometimes, highlighting, capital letters, underlining, sometimes we need to be in this part of our nervous system to get things done. But we need to be able to switch off into the parasympathetic nervous system, which is the rest and digest. And it is only in this part of the nervous system that we heal. So if we're doing all the time, we are burning the candle at both ends, and there is no rest and restore. And sleep does not count. Sleep is not resting. Sleep is sleeping, okay? But resting has to be implemented throughout the day. So, most of us get an hour lunch break. How about you go sit in the car or a quiet room for 10 minutes, undisturbed, with no phone, and just be? Or sit on a bench with no phone, no distractions, and just look at nature. Or just close down your eyes and focus on your breath. And these things have been deemed as unproductive or, not really the societal norm. But essentially, these are the practices, these are the ways in which you begin to switch off or switch into the parasympathetic nervous system to counteract the sympathetic nervous system. So a lot of people say to me, well, how do I stop? You have to just create pockets, moments in which you're like, okay, I haven't taken a breath all day. Let me just take a breath. Do I need some water? Do I need to just sit? Do I need to just close down the laptop for a moment? Because so many of us think that if we stop, the whole world will stop. And rationally, we know that that's not the truth. But the irrational part of our brain, the ego, the critical mind, is like, well, if we don't keep the show running, who will? So it's about testing that belief to say, well, if I'm uncontactable for an hour, will everything be okay? And when you start to take that time for yourself, more time will be created and everything will begin to shift and move in your reality. People will be less dependent on you. You'll be less reactive to responding and just taking your time in responding and so on and so forth. So you need to get into the driver's seat of your life and start running your life rather than allowing other people and other influences in running you. And when I work with women in the Rose Code community and the one-to-one spiritual guidance programs, the first thing they always say to me, I don't have time. I'm like, okay, that's fine. But let's look at your phone and see how much time you spend on social media. or how much time you sit down in the evenings watching telly, or how much time you spend in the morning, what time you getting up at. So when we zoom out of the, oh, this is how my life is, it's like, oh, actually, I do have a little bit of time here and a little bit of time there. And often what happens is they go from the belief of, I have no time, to, yeah, I could take an hour or two on a Wednesday morning just for me. And over the period of that time, it becomes a whole day of, well, in my case, it's a Katie day, where it's just a day for me. No work, no coffees, no lunches, just a day for me to do whatever I feel like doing on that day. So it is so interesting and so beautiful to see these women change that perspective of, oh, I never have any time. No, I can't do this and I can't do that. To be like, actually, how much more time can I create for myself? And it's very hard to see how much time you have in your life when you're in it. Whereas someone taps you on the shoulder, be like, hey, well, what about a little pocket there, here, or just basically giving you the permission to say, you are worthy of taking this time for you. Because what a lot of these women, and probably you who are listening to this, is you're prioritizing everybody else over you. Is there anyone asking you how you are today? I'm asking you, how are you today in this moment? How are you feeling? What is alive in your heart? What are you truly desiring to do, to be? And what would you like to let go of? What is causing you suffering that, if you were given the permission to put it down, what space would that make in your life? So I just want you to sit with those questions for a moment with your eyelids closed and just breathe into them. See what comes up. And just imagine for a moment if you made the time and the space in your life to do those things, to plant those seeds, to nurture those desires and dreams. What could your life be like? And these are questions that I sit with myself often when life becomes a little bit flat or busy, or I'm like, oh, things are kind of not lining up as I had hoped. I sit with those questions and I sit with myself and I daydream about, what would it be like to take a Friday off and just go walk on the beach, or, you know, just have a day in my home listening to music and drinking cacao and just being creative with paint, or making some oil sprays, or making my favorite meal. What would that feel like? And these are not like crazy elaborate ideas. These are just normal things. But again, they're not deemed as productive, goal orientated. They're just creative things, miscellaneous things. But it is these things that spark the joy and the pleasure and help us to reconnect with our passion. And that's what the feminine is. And if we're not making moments for those unproductive things, for those times of creativity, we are not feeding the feminine. And that's when life becomes linear. That's when the color starts to drain from our life. And we just plateau. So I would really love you to share maybe in the comments what came up for you in those questions, or what came up that you are so surprised about, or what you're more curious about. I would really love to hear more. But I would also like to share that there's a cost to the constant doing. It takes a huge toll on our mindset, both physically and spiritually. There's a rise in women and young women and even teenagers becoming burnt out, which is so terrifying. And we become so disconnected from ourselves. And there's this sense of emptiness from our beautiful life. And this is all because there's such a drive for productivity. And it's just really draining the feminine. So this is where we have to reclaim our divine feminine essence and our sacred way of living through these pockets and through these layers that we can, feed it into our day. But it has to start with you. You have to decide that I'm taking this time to just be. So if you're really curious or longing for this, I extend this invitation to you to join us in the Rose Code community, where we take the time to reconnect with our feminine, where we cycle with the moon, and we make space for creativity and healing. And we begin to decondition everything that we've been told and create a new story. So please do allow yourself to take a sacred pause. And if you can't do it yourself, we welcome you into the sisterhood, into the Rose Code, to do exactly that. So I really hope you've enjoyed today's podcast and it's inspired you or sparked some interest in you to explore this way and to just reclaim your power and to allow the transformation to happen through these seeds and through listening to podcasts like this and through educating yourself. It's so important. And yes, if there's any other topics or if you want to dive deeper into this, again, let me know in the comments below. But I am sending you so much love and I'm so grateful that you are here. And don't forget to follow this podcast and subscribe and maybe even send it on to another sister who could really use this information. Namaste.